Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today we are going to be repairing some lipos. I have 6 or 7 different lipos that need to be fixed. So I'm going to dive in and show you how to repair your lipos if you've got damaged cables and balance leads and stuff. And I'll show you the internals of the lipos and what I do to fix them safely. You might see some magic smoke, you might see some sparks flying. That's all part and parcel of repairing lipos. You've got to be careful not to short circuit anything. On this one I already have short circuited 2 of the balance connectors, and I can feel that the silicon's completely burnt and they're like stiff. So I'm going to have to replace these 2 balance leads, and I've got to replace the shrink wrap on the negative pad here. Just a little bit of the shrink wrap here is a bit off. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that today, and I'll walk you through the repairs on 6 or 7 of my other batteries that I've damaged over the course of the last year. So let's go to the bench and start ripping these battery packs apart and fixing them. So I have a crimping tool that I purchased specifically for this job. It's a very expensive tool. It's from iWis. And it is the AWG 2820 SN01BM insert. So these inserts, unfortunately, they are patented and very heavily guarded, and you don't really find them on the China market for some reason, because I mean they're protecting their investment. These crimping tools are pretty much all the same. I have another crimping tool for the DuPont connectors, which is very similar, just the inserts are a bit wider to accommodate for the wider plugs. The little terminals come in strips like this, and I purchased mine from Farnell Element 14, the web shop. I purchased quite a few of these strips. I think I purchased like 500, because you need 5 for each 4S balance lead, and then I purchased 100 of these balance connectors as well, because I'm always going through them. I might go through maybe 1 or 2 a week, because they get caught up in the props and they get damaged quite easily. So I've got all the tools I need. Also got some cable here. This is 22 AWG cable for the balance leads. You could get away with 20, but sometimes they don't really fit well inside the balance connector. They're really hard to push in if they're too thick over here, because the crimping tool doesn't crimp down enough, and they get stuck and they're really hard to get in. So I used 22 gauge on that, and I also got some 14 gauge, I think, for the terminals. These ones are 12 gauge, but on such a short run, I don't think it'll make much of a difference if I use 12 gauge. I don't think it'll create too much resistance there. If it does, well, these battery packs are old anyway, so I'm not going to replace all of them. I'm only going to replace the ones that are damaged. Like this one's not damaged at all, just the shrink wraps on the negative terminals a bit broken there, so I'll remove that, replace that shrink wrap on this one. So I've already sort of started. I took off the old balance connector, which was broken, and I replaced it with a new one, and I've put in the new the cables that were okay. I've just popped them back into their original places. The way these work is, if you flip them with the terminal little pads, this open part here of the terminals, if you flip that up, the positive wire is always sort of on the right hand side if you hold it in this direction. So when you're holding it in this direction, the right hand one is the positive lead, and then 3, 6, 9, 12, so on, or 4, 8, 12, 16 in this case, whatever, discharged or charged, however you want to carry that on. The way they're connected in is, obviously the positive one goes straight to the positive terminal, the next balance lead goes to the negative terminal of the first and positive of the second. The next terminal goes to the negative of the second and positive of the third. The next one goes to the negative of the third and the positive of the fourth. Positive of the third. Positive, negative, and then negative. You get the point. So positive on one end, negative of the other. 4, 8, 12, 16. It's fairly simple. You can also use the multimeter to measure in between the terminals to get them right. If you lose their order, or if it's not clear which order they should be in, you go to the first twos, 4.2, 8, 12, 16. That's fairly simple. So what I want to do now is replace these two burnt out leads with my soldering iron. So let's get that warmed up. This one will warm up pretty quickly. This is the TS100 soldering iron. It's my preferred little soldering iron for this kind of job. I also have my trusty little robotic arms here, and my sponge, which is moistened and ready to clean off my tip. So let's go ahead and desolder this first tip. I'm going to go in between the two terminals here. I'm just going to add a little bit of solder to help heat things up. Maybe a little bit more. This is not going anywhere. Don't know what solder they used to solder this, but wow. You know what? That's not going anywhere. This soldering iron today. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snip it off really close to the terminal. And I don't think that's going to get in the way of anything. These are all going to be covered in Kapton tape anyway once I'm done. Might as well cut this one off as well. There you go. I use these flush cutters to snip stuff off. And I've prepared two new balance leads earlier. I'll show you how to crimp these a little bit later. I'm going to have to crimp some more, but these are pre-done. So I'm going to stick it in. There's a little tab on the back. There's a little clip that will clip into place, so make sure that's facing the opening on the terminal, on the plastic bit, and just pop it in and make sure you give it a little tug, make sure it's firmly in place. Then what you do is you want to make sure that these cables are sort of all the same length, so as to not put any strain on any one of the wires. So if like one of them is shorter, for example if I make this one shorter and I pull the balance lead, you'll see it's putting all of the strain on that single wire, which is not good. So you want to make sure they're all the same length. So do give it a firm tug, make sure they're all firmly, you know, quite stretched out and straight, more or less at the same time. And then you can mark where you're going to cut the lead. In my case it's right there. Give it a snip, take the little end off, there you go, give it a twirl, and now we can tin it. So clean your tip, grab some solder and pre-tin this wire. There you go. That's nice and tin. It's got a nice amount of solder on there. Then you do the same thing. Keep some tension there to make sure they're all straight. And just go in. It's not the prettiest of jobs, but I think that's good enough to go in there. I'll put some Kapton tape over that to make sure it doesn't short circuit internally. So that's one done. Let's grab the next one and pop that in here. Since I'm following the order they came out, it's fairly easy. You can see that they're all in order, so you can't go wrong. Let's give it a nice tug, make sure they're all same length, mark it for cutting, strip it, twirl it, clean it, tin it. There you go. Okay. Hopefully that's in place and not cold. Yeah, that's not coming out. Great. So now all I have to do is try and get this negative terminal off. I think that's going to be a bit of a challenge. I'll give it a go. I'll try to get the negative terminal off, but I might not be successful. And if not, I'll just leave it. Yeah. I don't know what solder Tattu have used on these batteries, but oh my days. I need a bigger tip for that, and I don't have one. So let's leave it. It's not very bad anyway. It's just a little bit ripped over there. No issues. So now what I want to do is I want to put some Kapton tape in between these terminals so that they don't short circuit if they get banged around. So for that I want to remove, they're all stuck together with tape. I don't want to damage the barcode. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and lift this tape up. There you go. So there's my barcode. I'll set that aside so I'll put it back on later. Let me just mark what side the barcode goes on with the Sharpie. There you go. And then I've got some more tape on this side in between the cells. I'm just going to lift that off. I'll put some more tape back in to keep them together later. So there you go. So they're all separate now, as you can see. Now what I want to do is I want to separate them from this plastic insert. So there's a rubber insert in between there, just so that I can get my Kapton tape in between the terminals. Just going to separate that. There's also some plastic inserts in between the cells. We're going to leave those alone. Try not to make them fall out. So I have some Kapton tape. Here's the Kapton tape. This is a sort of thermal insulation tape as well. So it is very high heat resistant. So I'm going to cut off some lengths of this with my scissors. And we're going to jam that in between these terminals here. So hopefully I can get that in there. This is very sticky, so we'll open. Slide the tape. You know what? I'm going to use the there right now. Yeah, there we go. Get the thick stuff. The thick stuff's a good nightmare. Get into this. There we go. Just make sure you got a little terminal. Gosh, go on. There you go. That's one terminal covered. Let's move to the next one. Move that over to the side. Do it down this end first. There. And the just separate them down. Do it in there. Make sure it's not covered. Let's move to the next one. Yeah, fine. Just rinse everything as necessary. There you go. Let's separate. Got one more to do. There's one of them can stay uncovered, the one in the middle, since all the others are already insulated. That one in the middle is not going to be able to touch anything. The static in this tape is insane. It just wants to stick to my fingers. Here, probably going to go over that plastic bit as well. Pull that down. There you go. And what I'll do, I'll use the thicker one just to cover the middle section. middle section like so. That way everything goes into place. Keep it nice and straight. So there you go, all the terminals are now insulated. I can grab my normal sellotape and just go around it. Drill, like nice and straight, so put down the desk. Just wrap around, give it attention, just make it nice and firm. And get that off. So there you go. Now my barcode can go back on in its original position, like so. And then my cover, which I've already straightened the aluminium protecting layer, straightened that up. It was a bit frayed over, so I've just banged it with the back of a screwdriver to make it nice and straight again. On the inside, I removed all the old Captain tape that was there. It's got a rubber end, protective end on the front, another little bit of foam on the back to keep it in place. So this just needs to slide over as such, making sure it's in place again. You can see that the bottom of it is a bit open over there. Not to worry, I think the shrink wrap, once the shrink wrap's on, it will keep that firmly in place. Grab some more of the sellotape, transparent kind. And I'm just going to go over the whole thing. Just going to go one layer over. You won't be able to see it once the shrink wrap's on. Just make sure everything's straight and aligned. Give it a nice tug. And go around it a couple of times. So that one's pretty much almost ready to rock and roll. Now all it needs is the shrink wrap, which I'll do later because I'm missing my heat gun. I don't know where my heat gun is. So that one's nice and repaired. So let's just go ahead and confirm that all the voltage readings are correct before you plug them in. That's quite an important thing to do. So let's get this in a way that will allow me to get my multimeter in there. There's my multimeter. Get this out of the way. And grab the terminals and just put the terminals in there. So the first and second, we've got 4 volts, 8 volts, 12 volts, and 16 volts. So there you have it. This one is ready to go. Back into the just be shrink wrapped and put back into service. So that was a pretty easy repair. It's going to look almost as good as new. So fast forward a couple of hours, and I know I said I was going to repair like 5 or 6 different batteries today. But looking back at the footage, this video is already 20 minutes long, and I think like once you've done one and you've seen the internals of one lipo, the rest are pretty much always the same. I did start the second battery, and during filming that went horribly wrong, and I'll show you why. Basically, the positive terminal came off this 3S pack that I had previously repaired. And what happened then was
this tab on the battery. These are nickel tabs, by the way, and what they do is they weld on a little extra tab that you can solder your wires to. So during the previous failure, that tab ripped off, so I've got nothing to solder onto. So I tried soldering it onto the nickel, and that doesn't work. I knew it wouldn't work. I just gave it a go anyway. But in the process, it fouled my soldering iron tip with the nickel, and yeah, pretty much destroyed the tip of my soldering iron. I did manage to get it back with some tip thinner, which is this stuff here. It's like an acidic paste, which you dip your tip into, and there's also solder in there, and that sort of cleans your tip up and rejuvenates your tip. So I managed to bring it back, but in the process just gave up on this battery, and now it's a bit too late. So what I did instead is I used my little portable oven to shrink wrap the battery that I repaired earlier. So here it is, all shrink wrapped. I used this heavy duty rubber shrink wrap, which I purchased from kingquad.shop on eBay a while back. This is the rubbery stuff that Turnigy uses. This is actually, the listing was Turnigy branded shrink wrap. So this is very rubbery, as you can see, and it's very resistant, so perfect for lipos, and it's not like the plasticky stuff that came originally on these Tattu batteries, which is really thin and brittle, and that just breaks off, as you can see, especially in the winter, in the cold. It's just really brittle and breaks off. So I don't like using this stuff. I prefer the rubbery kind. So I put that on in my oven and finished off the pack. So it looks almost as good as new. And it's a bit more heavy duty. It's a little bit heavier, but maybe like 3 or 4 grams heavier, but that doesn't matter that much for me. So this one's repaired. I'm not going to do any more. I'm not going to show you guys any more repairs, because once you've seen internals of one, I think I've pretty much covered everything that you need to know about repairing these, including the fact that you cannot solder onto the nickel tabs. So I'll show you this one. There you go. So there's that. This is a dead cell, and there's your nickel tab that comes out of the battery, and welded on is another, probably, I don't know, maybe tin tab that you soldered to. So since I cannot weld, I don't have the machine to weld these terminals on, that pack is pretty much gone. I might turn it into a 2S battery for my goggles at a later date, which I can probably film and show you. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope you liked it. I did fast forward some of the boring bits in post, as you've seen. I hope the video wasn't too long. If it is, just leave a comment down below, and subscribe. Click the bell icon, and I've got a Patreon link in the description if you wish to support my endeavors, which I very much appreciate. So I'll see you next time, and in the meantime, happy quarantine or isolation, and let's see if we can soon go out and fly this rejuvenated pack. So take care, and until next time, bye bye.